Awesome. Okay. So we are going to go ahead and get started for this week's Healthy Tuesday webinar. Again, my name is Samantha Zoika. I'm the Youth Program Coordinator and Training Specialist for Partnership Carson City. And this week we're going to be talking about coping skills in the era of COVID-19. And then I'm going to give you guys some ideas on what you guys can do at home with your family to keep your guys' selves entertained. If my thing will, there we go. Okay. So talking about stress during a pandemic, so I think that it's no surprise that everyone has had sort of heightened stress and anxiety during this whole time, which is totally normal because it's not every day that we have a pandemic. And so, I mean, it's very common for these type of feelings to arise. Signs of increased stress and anxiety can include fear and worry about your family member's health, increased or decreased sleeping patterns, changes in eating patterns, increased substance use, and worsening medical conditions. Everyone can have different reactions to stress during this time. It's important to recognize the signs of stress and learn the proper coping skills to keep yourself healthy. So we're gonna dive right into those coping skills. And so these might be some sensitive populations to stress. So any sort of first responders, including medical professionals, frontline workers, doctors, and also counselors too. So anyone who's really dealing hands-on with the pandemic can be way more susceptible to stress and anxiety. People with pre-existing mental health concerns. So if someone's already suffering from any sort of anxiety or depression, this can make it a lot worse for them. Older people with chronic diseases or those who are at higher risk for contracting the virus, and children and teens. And a lot of when we talk about children and teens, it's going to be especially those ones who are missing out on milestones. So all of our senior class who's supposed to be graduating, eighth graders moving on to being freshmen, and just overall children in general. So developing coping skills. So we need to recognize first and foremost what triggers our stress and anxiety. While it can just be generalized stress, it could be generalized anxiety, but there's also some things that will trigger it more than others. If you're someone who doesn't usually suffer from stress and anxiety, it's important to recognize that, again, this is new and it's a different time, which can cause these emotions. So recognize the fact that what works for you to reduce your stress and anxiety might not work. What might work for someone won't work for you. So I know that personally for me, to reduce my stress and my anxiety, I like to go on walks or I like to go on hikes. But if you're someone who doesn't like the outdoors and that stresses you out more, then that might not be your fix. So while people can give you all of the recommendations of things to do, maybe those things won't work for you, and that's totally okay because everyone's different with the way that they can cope with their stress and anxiety. Coping skills can also constantly change. So one thing that helped reduce your stress last week may not be doing that for you this week, and that's okay too. So coping skills can always change. Sometimes if maybe in the past as a kid you were like, oh, I loved arts and crafts and that was my thing, but now as you're getting older, that's maybe not your thing, and that's totally okay too. So there's 7 different types of coping skills, and I'm going to go through each one of them and then also give you examples of negative coping skills in that same category. So for our 7, we have diversions, physical, social interpersonal, so with other people, cognitive, tension reducers, spiritual, and limit setting. So diversions. So diversion coping skills are ones that would typically take your mind off of things and distract you from stress and anxiety. So positive examples of diversions would be drawing, writing, or painting, taking a shower or a bath, gardening, watch TV or a movie, take a walk, take a run, take a jog, or playing a game. So those would all be different things to just get your mind off of things. So any sort of thing that would keep you active in that sense. A couple examples of negative coping skills for diversions would be procrastination. So whether that's putting off work if you're working from home, putting off schoolwork, procrastinating laundry, or anything like that that needs to be done. And another one would be diverting your mind by using drugs and alcohol. Physical coping skills not only focus on getting you active, but are also going to focus on overall health and well-being. So this will also include some examples of diet that we'll talk about. So physical can include getting enough sleep or keeping a consistent sleep schedule. I know it's easy for everyone in quarantine to go to bed at 2 a.m. and wake up at noon, but by keeping a consistent sleep schedule that you typically would have if you're in work or school, that would also be a good way to cope. Changing to a healthier diet. So this is the time because we have more time to actually focus on what we can eat and what we can't eat, and being at home and making those healthier options available. So keeping a consistent routine. So whatever your day-to-day routine looks like, if waking up and the first thing you do is make your cup of coffee, then keep that consistent. Or your first instinct to wake up is to take a shower and then get ready for the day. By keeping that consistent routine, it'll also give you a sense of normalcy. Limiting caffeine. That can also be sometimes hard to do when we're in quarantine. Limit alcohol usage and take time to focus on deep breathing. So a couple examples of negative physical coping skills would be extreme lack of physical activity, self-harm, reckless or dangerous physical activity. So maybe taking a drive, but maybe that drive is reckless driving or anything like that. Moving on to social and interpersonal coping skills. So this is probably one of the hardest ones since we can't really be with each other. But at the same time, though, we can also probably argue that this one's the most important since that's what we're really missing with all the social distancing and the lockdown that's happening. So a couple ways that you can still maintain social interactions and coping skills would be talking to someone you trust or care about. You can send them a text, you can write them a letter, which would be kind of fun. Set boundaries and know how and when to say no. That one I feel like would be just a good thing to have overall. Care for and play with a pet if you have one. Use humor. I mean, we can all use a little bit of light humor during this time. Connect with people you haven't had the chance to in a while. Or spend quality time with family members, which I feel like we can all agree that we have been spending very much quality time with family members or people in our households. A couple of negative coping skills for social and interpersonal would be gossiping, isolating or withdrawing yourself, and enabling bad behavior. Cognitive coping skills focus on your mental health and can also reduce anxiety and even depression-like symptoms. So a couple things that would be positive would be making a gratitude list or even making a gratitude jar. That I've always seen is super fun. You just write one thing that you're grateful for either each day or each week. You can keep it in a cute little jar, and then it's always fun to go look back on and see what you were grateful for at that period in time. Keep an inspirational quote posted somewhere. You can see it every day. You can do this by writing it on your mirror with an expo marker. You can write a post-it note, whatever you have to do to keep that quote somewhere. Put it somewhere that you'll see it daily. Write a list of goals that you want to set, either now or in the future, something that you'd like to accomplish. Write a list of strengths. And this could be kind of fun, even if you made it a fun family activity. So you could write, each person can write a list of strengths that they like about themselves, about them others, what they see in others and stuff like that. So that could also fall into the category of something you could do with your family. Reward or pamper yourself when successful. And I really want to hit home on this one, that rewarding yourself when you're successful can be the littlest things. I know that sometimes it's even hard to get out of bed and put on pants. And if that's your successful thing for the day, then that's fantastic and you can reward yourself. If you have had a super productive day and you did all the laundry, you did all the cooking, you went on a walk, then that's what success can look like that day. Success isn't going to look the same every day. So it's important to not hold ourselves to those high of standards, because success can even be just brushing your teeth for the day. And then we want to focus on the solutions and not the problems. So I know that especially during this time, there's a lot of ways that we can focus on the issues that's happening, the problems. But if we focus on the solutions and what we can do to get ourselves through the day and get ourselves through the lockdown, it'll put you in a better state of mind. And by just having yourself in a better state of mind of positivity, it's actually going to lighten your mood and you'll see your stress reduced. So a couple of poor cognitive coping skills would be denying problems, having tunnel vision thinking or having that black and white thinking, overgeneralizing, and this one's also important, but focusing too much on the news or on fake news. So I know that on the news channels, it's everything that we're seeing is about COVID-19, and there's also a lot of misinformation out there. So by focusing solely on that and not really taking the time for yourself to filter through what is true and what's not true in that information, can really, really dampen the mood. So tension reducers. So these ones are pretty self-explanatory. Hi. These are basically anything that will help reduce built-up tension that may cause stress. So examples can include cry. Sometimes letting out a good, long, hard cry can reduce tension. Laughing, catharsis, so letting out a good scream if need be, or exercise or playing sports. A couple poor negative coping skills of tension reducers would be throwing tantrums, yelling or screaming at others, destroying property, and speeding or driving recklessly. Moving on to spiritual. So when we talk about spiritual, we're really focusing on the soul and what motivates someone. But spiritual on the other end can also include religious practices if someone is religious. So examples of spiritual coping skills would be enjoying nature and the outside. So getting that vitamin D into your soul is really going to help. Getting involved in a worthy cause. This one could be super simple. I know, for example, if anyone's on Facebook, there is a very cool group going around where you can adopt a senior. And so all of these people are posting pictures of their seniors, and people are bringing them little gift baskets for all the graduating seniors. So that in itself is a worthy cause. So it doesn't have to be anything grandiose. Praying or meditation, practicing mindfulness, and also practicing yoga or other forms of mindfulness physical activity. Negative examples of spiritual would be overindulging, eating too much, gambling online, spending too much, and limit setting, I believe, is our last one. So everyone has boundaries, even in the time of lockdown. It's important to maintain these boundaries, especially during this time. So examples would include limiting some involvement, prioritizing important tasks over smaller tasks, using assertive communication when needed, and scheduling time for yourself. Okay, so I have a quick video, on how stress affects the brain. So let me get that set up. Okay.
Are
we
you
see and hear
sleeping
it.
restlessly, feeling irritable or moody, forgetting little things, and feeling overwhelmed and isolated? Don't worry, we've all been there. You're probably just stressed out. Stress isn't always a bad thing. It can be handy for a burst of extra energy and focus, like when you're playing a competitive sport or have to speak in public. But when it's continuous, the kind most of us face day in and day out, it actually begins to change your brain. Chronic stress, like being overworked or having arguments at home, can affect brain size, its structure, and how it functions, right down to the level of your genes. Stress begins with something called the hypothalamus-pituitary-adrenal axis, a series of interactions between endocrine glands in the brain and on the kidney, which controls your body's reaction to stress. When your brain detects a stressful situation, your HPA axis is instantly activated and releases a hormone called cortisol, which primes your body for instant action. But high levels of cortisol over long periods of time wreak havoc on your brain. For example, chronic stress increases the activity level and number of neural connections in the amygdala, your brain's fear center. And as levels of cortisol rise, electric signals in your hippocampus, the part of the brain associated with learning, memories, and stress control, deteriorate. The hippocampus also inhibits the activity of the HPA axis, so when it weakens, so does your ability to control your stress. That's not all though. Cortisol can literally cause your brain to shrink in size. Too much of it results in the loss of synaptic connections between neurons and the shrinking of your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain that regulates behaviors like concentration, decision-making, judgment, and social interaction. It also leads to fewer new brain cells being made in the hippocampus. This means chronic stress might make it harder for you to learn and remember things, and also set the stage for more serious mental problems like depression and eventually Alzheimer's disease. The effects of stress may filter right down to your brain's DNA. An experiment showed that the amount of nurturing a mother rat provides its newborn baby plays a part in determining how that baby responds to stress later in life. The pups of nurturing moms turned out less sensitive to stress because their brains developed more cortisol receptors, which stick to cortisol and dampen the stress response. The pups of negligent moms had the opposite outcome, and so became more sensitive to stress throughout life. These are considered epigenetic changes, meaning that they affect which genes are expressed without directly changing the genetic code. And these changes can be reversed if the moms are swapped. But there's a surprising result. The epigenetic changes caused by one single mother rat were passed down to many generations of rats after her. In other words, the results of these actions were inheritable. It's not all bad news, though. There are many ways to reverse what cortisol does to your stressed brain. The most powerful weapons are exercise and meditation, which involves breathing deeply and being aware and focused on your surroundings. Both of these activities decrease your stress and increase the size of the hippocampus, thereby improving your memory. So don't feel defeated by the pressures of daily life. Get in control of your stress before it takes control of you.
So that was just a cool little video that I liked, that talked about stress and why it's important to have those coping skills established. Let's see. Okay. All right. So now we're going to talk about some ideas that you guys can do with your family during lockdown, or even by yourself as well too. So the first thing is get some fresh air. Get outside. Vitamin D works wonders for the soul. I know that this week the weather's been a little bummer, but I know it's going to start getting warmer outside and it's going to be beautiful. So if that means you want to go for a family bike ride, I've seen people rollerblading, which could be fun. You could do your work outside. You can do homework outside with your kids if you have any. So whatever it is to get you outside, just go sit out, even if it's for 10 minutes out in the sun, and just get some fresh air. So you could try new recipes and make it fun. So there's tons of recipes. You can check out Pinterest, you can just Google them. But you can also make it fun with your family. So you can make it Iron Chef style, where you each have a different recipe. So you each have to make spaghetti, but you have to use a secret ingredient, and you can decide what that is, and then you can have your other family members try it out and figure out who wins, and you can make a trophy, or you can get as invested in it as you want, but that could be some sort of fun idea. You can have a cook-off with your family, so that could be an interesting way to keep it fun. You can make a TikTok dance. I know that TikTok is all for the teenagers and all of that, but in this time, if your kid wants to make a TikTok dance with you, I say, why not? Dancing is really good for the soul. It gets you moving. It gets that physical aspect as well. So that could also be a fun time. You can always download Zoom and have a virtual game night with families and friends. You can also just do this over FaceTime too, if you don't want to do the whole hassle with Zoom. But there is a really cool online portal called cards.io. So if you just Google that, it has a whole bunch of different games that you can play virtually with your friends. So they have Uno on there. I believe they have checkers, they have chess. They have a whole bunch of different games that you can play online. So that could be fun if you all get on FaceTime and then you all play a game together. Another one is there's the House Party app. House Party is super fun because it's Facebook, but it's also games built into one app. So you just download the app, you add friends on it, you can go through your Facebook page, you can go through your contacts and add people, and then they also have a bunch of different games on there too. They have charades, they have Pictionary, they have chess, they have checkers, they have a whole bunch of different stuff. So that could be a good way if you really miss seeing people face to face and then also want to play those games with them and have a game night. You can try a new virtual program, and I just listed a couple of the ones that we partner with and some that we also host. So we do yoga every Monday night at 5:15 on Zoom. So if you go to our webpage, Partnership Carson City, there will be the Zoom link on our events calendar. And if Monday nights at 5:15 don't work for you, we record every session and we upload it to YouTube about the next day. So you can have those yoga sessions for whatever works best for you. On Wednesdays, Join Together Northern Nevada, which is the coalition that takes care of Washoe County. They do Wellness Wednesday every single Wednesday from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., I believe. But they have some really cool ones coming up. So I know that they host yoga every week. They did a really cool drawing class on like a how-to. So you just followed the drawing instructor. They have Zumba, they have dance classes, they have hairdressers that hop on and show you how to do different hairstyles, how to cut your child's hair. And then I know that the next couple weeks they're having the SPCA do puppy training. So if you have any animals in the house and you're interested in puppy training, that could be cool. And then every Thursday night, Carson High School partners with us to do a family engagement series. So those ones are also uploaded on our YouTube account for you to go check out all the previous ones, but there was a really cool one last week on resiliency and why resiliency is important, especially during this time. We're going to have one on Thursday in Spanish, which will be a pretty neat one. And there's just been some really interesting topics that have came out of that. And there's a bunch of other online classes that aren't run through us, but these are some national ones that I found. So I know a couple places like the Picasso and Wine places, they have been actually offering virtual online paint classes. So like you would go there and the instructor instructs you exactly how to do the painting. You just get your own paint supplies, or I know that you can swing by and pick them up. They have them for the public. and then they hop on Zoom and they teach you exactly how to do the paintings stroke by stroke. So that would be a pretty fun activity. Orange Theory Fitness is actually a fitness studio across the country, I believe, but they're offering fitness classes through YouTube. So they do a whole bunch of stuff. They do, I know they do spin classes, they do CrossFit, they do activities where you don't even need a single weight or no equipment at all. So that would be pretty cool if you don't have any equipment in your household. And then again, there's virtual drawing classes. So if you've ever wanted to learn how to draw, or you just want to take an hour out of your day to do a step-by-step drawing class, that could be another fun idea. So that is all I have on coping skills, and then a couple different ideas on what to do with your family. But if there's any questions, I'll take any questions. And then next week, we're going to be talking about health consciousness and how to advocate for yourself. And Diana Alonso will be teaching that course. And then we will keep these going through June, and we will get the topics out pretty soon. So if there's any questions, you could ask them. You can write them in the chat box, whichever works. And if not, then I will see everyone next week.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you.